Well, hello everybody. The scenery has changed. We're doing a little on the road recording, so my apologies if I'm not as polished as usual. Well, if you missed the last recording, we just went through Exodus 34 through 36, and basically, Moses, he remade the stone tablets that the Lord wrote with his finger, since he threw them down and broke them when he was mad at everybody for worshiping a cow. Then he appoints all the people to do the certain jobs for building of the tabernacle and all the stuff that goes in it. And, he appoints them based on what God appointed. And then, everyone donates their part, all their gold and other miscellaneous things. And they get way more than enough. And the artisans building everything, they're like, all right, well, we don't need no more. Like, you can tell them to stop. So let's pick up where we left off, pretty much there on Exodus 37. Oh, and by the way, today is January 27th, 2025. Doing the finishing of Exodus today, 37 through 40. So let's jump into it. Thank you for being here. So he says, the marking of the ark of the testimony, Exodus 37. Then Bezalel made an ark of acacia wood. 2.5 cubits was its width, 1.5 cubits its width. So 2.5 cubits was the length, my bad. It's a little late. I'm kind of tired. 1.5 cubits its width and 1.5 cubits its height. He overlaid it with pure gold inside and out, and he made a molding of gold all around it. And he cast, look at the Bible right here. And he cast 4 its rings of gold to be set in its 4 corners, 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other side. He made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold, and he put the poles into the rings on the side of the ark to bear the ark. He also made a mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits was its length, and 1.5 cubits was its height. And he made 2 cherubim of beaten gold. He made them of one piece at the 2 ends of the mercy seat, 1 cherubim at one end of the side, and the other cherubim at the other end of that side. And he made the cherubim at the 2 ends of one piece with the mercy seat. And the cherubim spread out their wings and covered the mercy seat with their wings. They faced one another, and the faces of the cherubim were towards the mercy seat. On 2, making the table for the showbread. He made the table of acacia wood. 2 cubits was its length, and 1.5 cubits its width. Oh no, just 1 cubit its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. And he overlaid it with pure gold, and he made a molding of gold all around it. Also, he made a frame of handbreadth all around it, and made a molding of gold for the frame all around it. Then he cast 4 rings of gold, and put the rings on the 4 corners that were its 4 legs. And the rings were close to the frame as holders of the poles to bear the table. He made the poles of acacia wood to bear the table, and overlaid them with gold. He made of pure gold the utensils which were on the table, its dishes, its cups, its bowls, its pitchers for pouring. So man, they must have had a lot of gold between all these people. Must have been something to see. Onto making of the gold lampstand. He also made the lampstand of pure gold. Of hammered work he made the lampstand, its shaft, its branches, its bowls, its ornamental knobs, and its flowers were of the same piece. And 6 branches came out of its sides. 3 branches of the lampstand were on one side, and 3 branches were on the other side. There were 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on one branch with an ornamental knob and a flower, and 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on the other branch with an ornamental knob and a flower. And so for the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand. On the lampstand itself were 4 bowls like an almond blossom, with each of its ornamental knob and flower. There was a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches extending from it. Their knobs and their branches were of one piece. All of it was one hammered piece of pure gold. I bet it takes some craftsmanship to do all that. Then he made its 7 lamps, its wick trimmers, and its trays of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold he made it, with all its utensils. Onto making the altar of incense. He made the incense altar of acacia wood. It was a cubit for its length, and a cubit its width. It was a square, and 2 cubits was its height. So, maybe rectangular prism. And its horns were of one piece with it. He overlaid a pure gold, its top, its sides all around, and its horns. He also made for it a molding of gold all around it. He made 2 rings of gold for under its molding by its 2 corners on both sides as holders for the poles in which to bear it. And he made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. Onto the making of the anointing oil and incense. He also made the holy anointing oil and the pure incense of sweet spices according to the work of the perfumer. Onto Exodus 38, making the altar of burnt offering. He made an altar. This is he as in Bezalel. He made an altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length, and 5 cubits its width. It was square, and its height was 3 cubits. So it's like a square shape from like one side, but it's not like a cube, I guess is what I was thinking of. He made its horns on its 4 corners, and the horns were of one piece with it. He overlaid that with bronze. He made all the utensils for the altar, the pans, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. All of its utensils he made with bronze. And then he made a grate of bronze network for the altar under its rim, midway from the bottom. He cast 4 rings on 4 corners of the bronze grating as holders for the poles. And he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. Then he put the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar in which to bear it. He made the altar hollow with boards, making the bronze laver. He made the bronze laver of its base with bronze, and from the bronze mirrors of the serving women who assembled at the door of the tabernacle meeting, making the court of the tabernacle. Then he made the court on the south side. The hangings of the court were fine woven linen, 100 cubits long. That was a yawn. There were 20 pillars for them, with 20 bronze sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver. On the north side of the hangers were 100 cubits long, with 20 pillars and their 20 bronze sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver. And on the west side there were hangings of 50 cubits with 10 pillars and their 10 sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver. For the east side the hangings were 50 cubits. The hangings of one side of the gate were 50 cubits long with the 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. And the same for the other side of the court gate. On this side there were on this side and that were hanging of the 15 cubits with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. All the hangings of the court all around were of fine woven linen. The sockets for the pillars were bronze. The hooks for the pillars and their bands were silver, and the overlay of the capitals was silver. And all the pillars of the court had bands of silver. The screen for the gate of the court was woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. The length was 20 cubits, and the height along its width was 5 cubits, corresponding to the hangings of the court. And there were 4 pillars with their 4 sockets of bronze, with their hooks were silver, and the overlay of their capitals and their bands was also silver. And all the pegs of the tabernacle of all the court around were bronze. So these are the materials of the tabernacle. This is the inventory of the tabernacle of testimony, which was counted according to the commandment of Moses for the service of the Levites by the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. Bezalel the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made all that the Lord had commanded Moses. And with him was Aholiab, the son of Ashimach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver and designer a weaver of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine linen. All the gold that was used in all the work of the holy place, that is, the gold of the offering, was 29 talents and 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. Sounds like a lot of gold. I need to look into what exactly how much is 9 talents. And the silver from those who numbered of the congregation was 100 talents and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel of sanctuary. And Becca for each man, or a Becca for each man, that is half a shekel, according to the shekel of sanctuary, for everyone included in the numbering, from 20 years old and above, for 630,550 men. And from the 100 talents of silver were cast of sockets of the sanctuary and the bases of veil, 100 sockets from the 100 talents, 1 talent for each socket. Then, from the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the pillars, overlaid their capitals, and he made bands for them. The offering of the bronze was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. And with it he made the sockets of the door of the tabernacle of meeting, the bronze altar, the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils for the altar, the sockets for the court, all around, the bases for the court gate, all the pegs for the tabernacle, and all the pegs for the court all around. And so, on to Exodus 39. This is making the garments of the priesthood. Of the purple, blue, and scarlet thread, they made garments of ministry for ministering in the holy place, and the holy garments of Aaron, as the Lord had commanded Moses. So, making the ephod. He made the ephod of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and 5 woven linen. And they beat the gold into thin sheets and cut it into threads to work it with the blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and the fine linen into artistic designs. They made shoulder straps for it to couple it together. It was coupled together at its 2 edges, and the intricately woven band of this ephod was on it was what? The intricately woven band of his ephod that was on it was of the same workmanship, woven of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And they set the onyx stones enclosed in settings of gold. They were engraved as signets and are engraved with the names of the sons of Israel. He put them on the shoulders of the ephod as memory stones for the sons of Israel, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, making of the breastplate. And he made the breastplate artistically woven like the workmanship of the ephod of gold, purple, blue, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. They made the breastplate square by doubling it. A span was its length, and a span was its width when doubled. And I need to look up what a span is. And they set it in 4 rows of stones, a row with sardius, a topaz, an emerald. It was the first row. The second row was a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row, a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They were enclosed in settings of gold in their mountings. There were 12 stones, according to the names of the sons of Israel, according to their names, engraved like a signet, each one with its own name, according to the 12 tribes. And they made chains for the breastplate at the ends, like braided cords of pure gold. They also made 2 settings of gold and 2 gold rings, and put these rings on the 2 ends of their breastplate. And they put the 2 braided chains of gold and the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate, and the 2 ends of the 2 braided chains they fastened together. The 2 set They fastened in the two settings, and they put them on the shoulder straps of the ephod in the front. And they made the 2 rings of gold, and they put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate, on the edge of it, which was on the inward side of the ephod. They made 2 other gold rings, put them on the 2 shoulder straps underneath the ephod towards its front, right at the seam above the intricately woven band of the ephod. And they bound the breastplate by these means of the rings to the rings of the ephod with a blue cord, so that they would be above the intricately woven band of the ephod, and that the breastplate would not come loose from the ephod, as the Lord had commanded Moses. It's kind of hard for me to imagine, but basically, like, they just like bound the breastplate. Just like, I don't know. I kind of think of it as like an armor to like the ephod, which is like, I want to say like a vest or something. Maybe. I'm a little too tired for this. Anyway, onward. Making the other priestly garments. He then made the robe of the ephod of woven olive blue, and there was an opening in the middle of the robe, like the opening in a coat of mail, with the woven binding all around the opening, so that it would not tear. They made on the hem of the robe pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet, and of fine woven linen. And they made bells of pure gold, and put the bells between the pomegranates, on the hem of the robe, around between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe to minister in, as the Lord commanded Moses. They made tunics artistically woven of fine linen for Aaron and his sons, a turban of fine linen, exquisite hats of fine linen, trousers of fine woven linen, and a sash of fine woven linen with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, made by a weaver, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold, and wrote on it an inscription like an engraving of a signet, Holiness to the Lord. And they tied it to a blue cord to fasten it above the turban, as the Lord commanded Moses. And so now all the work's completed. Thus to all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting was finished, and the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord had commanded Moses, and so they did. And they brought the tabernacle to Moses, the tent and all of its furnishings, its clasps, its boards, its bars, its pillars, and its sockets. The covering of the ram skin dyed red, the covering of the badger skins, and the veil of the covering, the ark of the testimony, with its poles and the mercy seat, the table and all its utensils and showbread, the pure gold lampstand with its lamps, all of its utensils, and the oil for the light, the gold altar, the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, the screen for the tabernacle door. And this stuff's a mouthful. My throat's kind of sore. I'm kind of sick. So thank you for bearing with me. The bronze altar, its grate of bronze, its poles, and all its utensils, the laver with its base, the hangings of the court, its pillars and its sockets, the screen for the court gate, its cords, its pegs, all the utensils for the service of the tabernacle, for the tent of meeting, and the garments of ministry to minister in a holy place, the holy garments for Aaron the priest and his sons' garments to minister as priests, according to all that the Lord had commanded Moses. So the children of Israel did all the work. Then Moses looked over all the work, and indeed they had done it, as the Lord had commanded, just so they had done it. And Moses blessed them. So, on to the last part of Exodus. Exodus 40, the tabernacle erected and arranged. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, On the first day of the first month you shall set up the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. You shall put in the ark of the testimony, and partition off the ark with partition off the ark with the veil, not evil. Let's switch those letters. You shall bring in the table and arrange the things that are to be set in order on it, and you shall bring in the lampstand and lights in the lamps. You shall also set the altar of gold for the incense before the ark of the testimony, and put up the screen for the door of the tabernacle. Then you shall set the altar of the burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of tent of meeting. And you shall set the laver between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, and put water in it. You shall set up the court all around, and hang up the screen at the court gate. You shall take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle, all that is in it, and you shall hallow it, and all of its utensils, and it shall be holy. You shall anoint the altar of burnt offering, and all its utensils, and consecrate the altar. The altar shall be most holy. You shall anoint the laver and its base, and consecrate it. Then you shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tabernacle, and wash them with water. You shall put the holy garments on Aaron, and anoint him, and consecrate him, that he may minister to me as a priest. And you shall bring his sons, and clothe them with the tunics. You shall anoint them as you anointed their father, that they may minister to me as priests. Their anointing shall surely be an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. Thus Moses did according to all that the Lord commanded him. And it came to pass in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was risen up. So Moses raised up the tabernacle, fastened its sockets, set up its boards, put it in its bars, and raised up its pillars. And he spread out the tent over the tabernacle, and put the covering of the tent on top, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He took the testimony and put it into the ark, which is, I guess, the 10 Commandments. He inserted the poles through the rings of the ark, and put the mercy seat on top of the ark. He had brought the ark into the tabernacle, hung up the veil of covering, and partitioned off the ark of testimony, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He put the table of the tabernacle of meeting He put the table of the tabernacle of meeting on the north side of the tabernacle, outside the veil. And he set the bread in the order upon it before the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he put the lampstand in the tabernacle of meeting across from the table on the south side of the tabernacle. And he lit the lamps before the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. He put the gold altar in the tabernacle of meeting in front of the veil, and he burned sweet incense on it, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he hung up the screen at the door of the tabernacle, and he put the altar of burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, and offered upon it burnt offerings and the grain offering, as the Lord commanded Moses. He set the laver between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, and he put water there for the washing. And Moses, Aaron, and his sons would wash their feet and their hands with the water from it. Whenever they went into the tabernacle of meeting, when they came near the altar, they washed as the Lord commanded Moses. And he raised up the court all around the tabernacle and the altar, and he hung up the screens from the court gate. So Moses finished the work. So we still got a little section, but I wonder if they got like a really early start in the morning to raise all of that tabernacle and get everything set up. It just sounds like a whole lot of work. Or maybe it was light work. They had a whole lot of hands on deck. But I guess they were anointing everybody and consecrating Aaron and his sons all on that first day too. So I bet it was a sight to see everything, everyone just pitching in, raising up the whole tabernacle and everything around it and in it, and doing all that. So the last section of Exodus 40, this is the cloud and the glory. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tabernacle of meeting, because the cloud rested above it, and the glory of the Lord filled the whole tabernacle. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle, the children of Israel would go onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not journey till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was above the tabernacle by day, and fire was over it by night, and in the sight of all the houses of Israel throughout all their journeys. So man, it sounds like, the Spirit of the Lord was in that cloud, hanging out above the tabernacle and By day it was a cloud, and at night it was a fire. I just wonder what kind of sight that was to see. But thank you for bearing with me. It was a really not polished, unscripted reading today. But we had to get through it. I had to get y'all taken care of. But we'll join again tomorrow, January 28th, and we're going to start on Leviticus. So I guess we'll see you then. Thank you. Bye.